Ethiopia is the origin of coffee. But how popular is Ethiopian coffee globally? And what are some of the efforts being made in order to make more global investors invest into this lucrative business? And what are some of the challenges? I'm joined here by Dr. Addis Dialogue, the Director General of Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority, to give us some answers to these issues. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Addis Dialogue with the program. I'm Shifara Olago. Please tell us. Dr. Addis, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me.
Thank you very much.
Now, diving straight into the matter, let me ask you this question. What are some of the activities that the Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority is doing as part of the efforts being made to get more benefits from Ethiopian coffee?
Thank you very much, and this is a very pertinent question. Before directly going into that, I would like to highlight what the coffee and Ethiopian people are, what is coffee to the Ethiopian people and how Ethiopian people are just dealing with coffee. Okay. And coffee is a social fabric of Ethiopian people, and it's the economic source and is the backbone of the Ethiopian country as a country for the as economy for the country. So it's not to mean that the country is having a challenge with the sector. Mm-hmm. So the country is globally positioned in a place where we can tap on the unexploited resources and capitalize on growth on the international markets. So some of the challenge that we are really having in the coffee sector is the low yield, the low export prices, the low the export values, and the long value chains that we have, and also the inefficiencies along the value chains are some of the most important problems that we are having this time. So as Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority, we are the mandated authority, an autonomous authority to oversight or given a mandate to oversight the coffee production, productivity, quality control, marketing, and also value addition. So market promotion and expansion is also one of the scope that has been given to Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority. So to alleviate and solve all the problems and to make the Ethiopian coffee sector very healthy, Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority is doing a number of things. Mm-hmm. One of that is developing a long-term vision and 15 years coffee strategy. So we have already identified what are the most important challenges and how are we going to just tackle these challenges and with whom are we going to just solve these or problems have been exclusively and exhaustively indicated in the strategy. Mm-hmm. So it has already passed three years, and since the last 3 years we have already practiced that one, and we have seen a number of significant changes in improving the sector and moving the sector one step ahead. So in this strategy, the first pillar that was thoroughly addressed is how to increase production and productivity of Ethiopian coffee sector. Previously, the Ethiopian coffee sector is hugely affected by low yield because that was mainly driven by the old age of the trees. So we have started to or initiated the mobilization of the old tree removal and the stamping and rejuvenation of these old trees and replacing of these old trees by the new varieties that are high yielding and also disease resistant and that are able to withstand the climate changes. In the last 3 years, we have already cleared more than 400,000 hectares of old coffee trees. So that has been replaced by the new one. Some of them were rejuvenated, or that means they cut back into the ground and then started freshly as a yield into to give yield much better than the already existing one. And we have already paid a visit to the farmers which have stamped their own coffee. Surprisingly, we got 2 to 3 times yield than the old trees. So this is one of the steps that we have already taken in order to bring change in the coffee sector. So that's from the production and the productivity side. So previously we've been getting about 6 quintals per hectare. Now we are expecting about 20 quintals per hectare. So in the coming 2 to 3 years, we'll significantly see the change in the production and the productivity in the coffee sector. Okay. Another important point is that, as I've already indicated, the long value chain and the inefficiencies in the value chain is the one that totally hampered our own export markets. So this has actually been developed by policy and the proclamation. But to solve this problem, we've tried to reform our policies entirely. Then that policy was reformed in 2017. And then that allowed the farmers, the exporters, and also the suppliers to have different marketing channels. Out of which previously coffee was forced to pass through ECX. And there were this policy has given an alternative approach for the exporters to directly bypass the ECX system and export directly to the international market. So this significantly reduced the value chain, the linkage of the value chain, improved the amount of volumes that we have already exported to the international market. And the quality, the inherent quality of the coffee has been improved significantly. And the value that we got from coffee also improved. And last year, historically, we've got 907 million USD, which has never ever happened in Ethiopia. So these are some of the activities that they have already done. And to expand our market channel and to expand our market niche, we have also developed the innovation approach, like what we call it, Cup of Excellence. So the most of the top 5 countries that are actually buying Ethiopian coffees are US, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, and Germany. But now we have expanded that 5 countries to 33 countries. So this is also very tremendous, and we are actually expanding even more the market channels and the market needs. So these are also the approach that Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority has taken to bring change in the coffee sector. The other important thing that we have taken is previously our exporters, there are some genuine exporters actually selling at a genuine price, but there are some who do not actually show how much they sold and for how much they sold that coffee. So we have developed a directive to standardize our own coffee. For example, what does that mean? Sidama 2, if it is sold at $2 per LB, it has to be sold throughout the international market at $2 per LB. But there are some who sell at 2, and there are some who sell at $1. So we have already standardized that, completely stopped what we call it the under-invoicing. Then by doing that, by implementing that directives, standardizing our own coffee prices and setting the minimum prices, without improving the quality, without improving the yield, we've improved the amount of revenue that we've got by 35%. This is also something that we have seen in the last 2 years. Okay. So these are some of the activities that Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority is undertaking in order to bring change in the coffee sector.
Now that things are improving when it comes to the quality and quantity of Ethiopian coffee, Ethiopia, as I said in my intro, is the origin of coffee, especially coffee Arabica. So how popular is Ethiopian coffee, globally as we speak, apart from those countries that you mentioned earlier?
Right here, Ethiopia's coffee is quite popular in international markets because, one, we are naturally endowed with the world-class varietal diversity. So this world-class varietal diversity allows the country to have different wide range of coffee qualities. So it's typical, of course, and this coffee quality is mainly found or mainly used by the international market or international or renowned coffee roasters as a spice. So they buy coffee from Brazil or Colombia or elsewhere in the world, and then they mix Ethiopian coffee to improve the quality of that particular coffee. So they buy Ethiopian coffee, but this is one advantage. But the disadvantage is that they don't want to buy the high volume of Ethiopian coffee because it's quite expensive compared to other like Brazil coffee and compared to the Colombian coffee and the Vietnam coffee too. So that's why Ethiopia coffee is sold not as a coffee only, but also as a spice. Oh. And that's the international roasters are using Ethiopian coffee to improve the qualities of other countries' coffee.
What are some of the efforts that you are making in order to provide, maybe more access to Ethiopian coffee to the global market so that they will have more access to Ethiopian coffee?
Yeah, one thing we need to work on further expanding the market channel, and we have to just create a very trustable marketing system. You know that our coffee was not able to trace the back because of the different value chains that we follow, and also the long value chains that we've been using. This time, the policy reforms that we brought reduced the value chain from farmer to supplier, from supplier to exporter. So the international buyer can trace and track where exactly that coffee is produced. So this has developed trust in Ethiopian coffee exporters. So this would allow us to further expand and increase the volume of coffees that we export to international market. For example, in the last number of decades, Ethiopia coffee, the volume of Ethiopia coffee that was exported to the national market hardly surpassed 200,000 tons. This year, we are exporting more or less close to 300,000 tons. So this is the result of the interventions that we brought to the sector. And the quality, maintaining the quality is also very important because in the international market, the coffees are compared and the values are also given based on the qualities of the coffee. So to maintain the inherent quality of Ethiopian coffee, we have also made significant changes in the value chain system. So in that case, most of our coffees that we export were like 70, 60, and 70%, they are lower grade. So in that case, that lower grade is sold either at $1 or even less. And because in the international markets, they put a bid, and then Ethiopian coffee will be sold as minus some differentials. So there are some plus and minus differentials. For example, if today's bid was closed at $1, Ethiopian coffee can be sold at minus $20 or minus 30 or minus 15, something like that. So we totally stopped that one by improving the quality and increasing the share of the specialty coffees in the international market. So previously the commercial share was about 70%, the specialty share was about 30%. This time we have already improved. The specialty percentage is going to 60%, and the commercial is going down to 40%. So in that case, our coffee will not enter into this New York market for bid. We can sell it by negotiation to the international buyers. So previously it was sold at $1. Currently, Ethiopian coffee was sold minimum at $4. So this is also something that we have brought. And this has already developed trust, and Ethiopian exporters' bargaining power also improved. And that amount of premium price is paid back to the farmer. Surprisingly, this year, Ethiopian farmers sold their red cherry 3 and 4 times that of the previous years. Previous years, they were forced to sell at 12 per kg. This year, they sold at 50 per 60 per kg. This is also something that we've seen in the livelihoods of our farmers too.
As you know, coffee means a lot to Ethiopians, especially when it comes to generating huge amount of foreign currencies. In this regard, how successful has this lucrative industry been so far, and what are some of the issues that need to be properly dealt with?
Frankly speaking, from the resources that we have, for example, we have still untapped resource from the coffee sector. And I cannot really say that we are still exploiting the potential. Still, we have to work something further in order to exploit that one and improve the revenue that we get from this coffee export. But since 3 years, the last 3 years, the volume is increasing. And also the amount of revenue that we are generating from coffee is also increasing. This year, for this year's fiscal year, or the last 9 months, we were planning to export about 183,000 tons of coffee and generate about 600 million USD. But we have already surpassed that, and this year, in the last 9 months, we have already got about 210,000 tons of coffee have been exported, and we are almost close to 900 million foreign currency has already been generated. So in the coming 3 months, we can also generate about 400 to 500 million USD, and then totally it will be about 1.2 or 1.3 billion dollar. So this is historic in Ethiopian coffee export. not only the value, but also the volumes that we have exported is also quite historic.
And this is going on in the midst of diverse challenges, such as the coronavirus and other issues, of course, internal issues, right?
Yes, of course, but the corona issue did not really affect the Ethiopian coffee markets, because Ethiopia is coffee is internationally renowned, and the exporters and the buyers and the roasters, they want to have Ethiopian coffee. And we have also changed or shifted our commercial market to the specialty markets. So in the international market, it is the commercial coffee that was entirely affected by corona. The specialty market was not hardly affected. So in that case, we were able to tap on the resource, and we were able to utilize efficiently the chance that we got. But the war between Russia and Ukraine has already brought some challenge in the Ethiopian coffee sector, because the Russia and Ukraine, they were taking huge amount of coffee, not directly from Ethiopia, but through Belgium or through Germany. But that huge amount is not now there. So there might be some challenge in the Ethiopian coffee sector too.
Okay, so have you devised some plans in order to come up with solutions to this issue?
The main intention of bringing Cup of Excellence to the Ethiopian coffee sector is to diversify the market channels and also the market niches. So previously we were entirely depending on the 5 top countries to export our coffee. This time we have expanded to 33 countries, so of which the Southeast Asia, like China and Japan, South Korea, they are now the potential market for Ethiopian coffee.
Let's also talk about coffee exporting industries. How successful have they been in exporting value-added coffee, Ethiopian coffee, to the global market? And have you encountered some challenges in this regard?
With regard to the value addition, frankly speaking, we have never gone far step, because it's a beginning for us. So what we did is, as an authority, is that we have already created a very enabling environment for investors who want to get themselves engaged in this coffee value addition. So that is developing policies and the setting of regulations and also directives. That's what we have already done. And then we have also identified some of the investors who want to get themselves into the system. And we'll try to just support them in creating very enabling environments. For example, in getting where exactly they can plant their own machineries, something like that. So the huge challenge that are ahead of us in the coffee value chain is that our ability to compete in the international market, because the international market want to buy a green coffee from Ethiopia, not a roasted coffee. So we need to compete with Nestle, and we need to compete with Starbucks and Lavazza. So to penetrate really this international market, either we have to devise a joint venture approach to really exploit, to enter into the market. Otherwise, we'll not be in a position to really compete and sell our value-added coffee. But we're still trying, and it's not bad.
Let's also talk about investors keen on venturing on Ethiopian coffee. So what are some of the schemes or the plans that you devised in order to lure more investors into this business, be it local investors or global investors?
Yeah, and our new proclamation, we have already opened up the opportunities for the foreign direct investors and even for the local investors. The first and the most important thing is that to identify the areas, the suitable areas where coffee can be further expanded. So we've managed to identify the areas where coffee can be further expanded in Oromia, in Amhara, in South, in Sidama, and also in the new region. So we have already identified, and we have already published results on our system. So investors who want to get themselves engaged here, they can contact us, or they can also use that information to come and invest here in Ethiopia. The other thing that's not yet practiced yet, but the foreign exporters, they can directly come to Ethiopia and buy coffee from Ethiopia and export to international market. So there is a bonded warehouse system. They can collect coffee from the supplier, they can store for a while here, and then they can sell for or export to the international market. So these are some of the opportunity which were opened for the international market.
Let's also talk about global platforms being hosted in Ethiopia or in other countries as part of the efforts to properly promote Ethiopian coffee. So what are some of these global events that you host?
Yeah, Ethiopia is a member of the ICO, the International Coffee Organization. Yeah. Ethiopia is also a member of the African Coffee Organization, AFCA, and also it's a member of the Inter-African Coffee Organization. So these are the three most important and huge international and national platforms where Ethiopia can exploit much from them. So the AFCA and the IACO programs were hosted a number of times here in Ethiopia. And unfortunately, last year there was a program to host AFCA here in Addis, but because of this COVID pandemic, it was not able to manage. So, yeah, we are trying to internationalize our system, to put our system into international system, and exploit the opportunities that are actually found there, and still we are working with them. As a member country, we are also paying a membership fee. Okay.
All right. Some companies are, I think, lodging complaints when it comes to the quality of some roasting machineries, and they are voicing maybe dismay that this might affect the quality and export standard of Ethiopian coffee. So what are the challenges on the one hand, and what are some of the solutions being sought?
As a starting country to exploit the value-added coffee, actually we need to establish a processing plants here for the coffee roasters. So the quality of the coffee machine and the roasting machines, and not only that, the quality of the expertise who are able to just work in that specific arena are also very important. So most of the coffees are imported, most of the equipments are imported, and this equipment to some extent they are standard or to substandard. It depends on how much the roaster pay. Oh. But there is a standard regulatory system that we put on to control this kind of problems. So in our authority we have input supply directorate, which is mainly working on these specific issues and setting the standards and also controlling the equipments that are actually coming here. And are they to the standard or are they lower in capacity, whatever. This kind of criteria has been explicitly indicated in our criteria, our rating criteria, so that we can just watch in that way. The other important thing is that we have to produce expertise or qualified expertise who can support the barista system, who can support the coffee cupping system, the roasting system, and also who can teach and practice this kind of activities. So for that, we have already created a coffee training center here in our premises. So the support has been given by the Italian embassy, and the technical aspect has been supported by UNIDO and the Illy Cafe, the international known Illy Cafe. So we have already brought typical equipments here for the tailor-made trainings that we're going to make. And this coffee training center can also be served by every interested people. So they can come and see what kind of equipments are very important for coffee roasting and value addition. We have already high standard coffee equipments here in our laboratory, and we are also giving training for them. I hope through time we can improve this, and the value addition value can be greater.
Finally, let me ask you this question, and we will conclude our discussion. What are some of the endeavors by the government to support you so that this coffee industry will become more lucrative for this East African nation?
Yeah, the government has already developed re-established the authority. That's most important because the authority has never been in the last number of years. So the authority who's taking care of the coffee issue is now re-established in 2015, and the government also budgeting a treasury budget for the government for the authority to run its own activities. But that is not enough. And what we are also doing is that we are developing a number of projects, and we're trying to solicit funds from a number of funding agencies. So, for example, like what I've mentioned here, a coffee training center, it's not possible to establish that the state-of-the-art training center by the government money. So we are also doing our level best to get much more funds from partners and from organizations. So the government is supporting us by providing logistics and monthly paying the salary of our staff. So these are some of the supports that we got from the government.
Dr. Addunyaa Dabalaa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for coming here and just bringing this issue on board to the market and to international partners too.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Well, dear viewers, with that, we come to the end of today's discussion, and many thanks for being with us so far. Until I see you next time with another program, it's goodbye from me, Shfarah.